Say thank you to the team from Monique. Thank you so much, Edwin, for sending me this email one day when I logged onto my my email, and I saw this guy called Edwin. Who the hell is he? Is this like a spam? And then as I read more and more, I find out that it's a really interesting idea, proposal, talking about Steel City, especially in Asia, where we think that it's constantly moving, dynamic, and very active. And here you are, a group of people are looking at Steel City. So I said yes, I would like to be part of this. So what I'd like to do today is to share with you a project that I did with a lot of people, just like you guys here. And it's in Beppu. Let me see if this works. Okay. For some of you who are not familiar with Beppu, it's called the hot spring capital of Japan, and it's only 90 minutes from Tokyo if you take the JL. So if you guys are stressed, go to Beppu. It's an amazing place. As you can see over here, all this steam that is rising up from the ground, these are all from the onsen. So as you're walking down the streets, it's almost like the whole city is on fire. And you can jump into the onsen, you can have a hot bath. Onsen is hot bath. But however, it's also facing a lot of challenges. Economic crisis, homelessness, a lot of elderly living on their own as well. And so this is where Beppu is. It's on the southern tip, and that's Tokyo. And there's 8 hot springs in Beppu. Our focus is on Beppu, Hamawaki. And these are the 2 earliest hot springs. Hamawaki, which is this region over here, is the first hot spring in Beppu. So as you can see from the slides, this is a shopping street in Beppu. A lot of the shops are closed because of economic problems. A lot of houses are also in a very bad shape. Apologize for the image over there on the left-hand side. Doesn't seem to come up very well. And you can see buildings that are, well, almost buildings, just the superstructures. So you can see a lot of these situations in the city. And I was talking to some of you just now. It's very unlike Tokyo. So, Beppu Project is an arts organization. They came to my project partner, Kenton Kishi, who is an architect, Japanese architect. And they came to him and they knew what we were working on, and they were asking us. They have a yearly project. It's an arts project. It's called Mixed Bathing. In fact, they're having one right now, 2012. And they were asking us to propose a series of events. It's an art project, but we are architects, and we're thinking maybe there's some angle from an architect, from a designer point of view, that we can actually propose to this art event. So we gathered a group of designers, design students, academics from Japan, together with some of my former students in Singapore, and my students from Chicago, which you can see is quite a mixed group, both Americans as well as Koreans from India, and also my colleague who is from South Africa. And we put together this team to work together on this project over 2 years. So the project was funded by the Motorola Foundation and the Toyota Foundation. And what we tried to do was basically to look at design as agency, as a form of activism, and also to develop some kind of a pedagogical toolkit so that we can use this and apply it in a different situation as well. So for those of us who are architects, you might be familiar with this situation, at least from my generation, where the architect and the committee is very separated. The image is not very clear here, but that's actually where our architecture school is. It's in the Louis Sullivan building, right on the top floor. beautiful. But we're separated from the community, and this is the common perception of what an architect is, right? Usually guy, white, you know, with the project, and the clients never understand what you're doing. You know, you're like the unappreciated artist. However, I think in this day and age, and a lot of you here, even though you're not designers or architects, you're artists, you're filmmakers, you find that you want to somehow be part of the community, sort of, you know, to offer your service to the community. And it's no longer the way that we worked in the past, where you are the professional and then these are, you know, the people that you design for. So part of the idea was also to embed the architect within the community, and we did that with a street studio. So this is the shopping street, some of the images I showed you just now, and we occupied a couple of shop fronts. There's 3 here. We took over the shops, cleaned up a little bit, and started to use it as a studio, right on the street level. This is a quotation from Gabriel Orozco, one of my favorite artists, and I stole his quotation because I find it's so relevant to us as architecture students, architects, as well as designers, where the problem with us being in a bubble, working among ourselves, talking the same language, it becomes a space that's too grand, and we are not confronted by reality. So, by being at in the street, these are just a small handful of encounters we had with the people in Beppu. They cooked for us as well because they heard that we're here to do something good for the community. So it was really wonderful. They came and cooked for us. We had people coming in, a gentleman, he claimed to be 90 years old, wanted to teach us martial arts. So he pushed my project partner, you know, just with one hand, and you know, he fell, Kenton fell. So maybe it's true. You have an ex-fireman that tells us to be prepared if there's an earthquake. You have the businessman that came in early hours in the morning, because as usual, you know, as designers, I'm sure, and artists, we work 24/7. They came in late at night, a bit drunk, and started, you know, doing all kinds of funny things. We have tourists coming in because we put up all the maps and the drawings. The one on the left is from the UK, and the one on the right is from France. And they asked us where's a good place to go in Beppu, and my students sort of helped them around because after a couple of sessions, they really know where to go. So it also became a sort of tourist information center. The lady wrote a thank you note for us, a poem. The shopkeeper, elderly shopkeeper, wrote a poem for us, thanking us for our effort. So in order to make this a success, we developed a few strategies or a few ways that we can sort of introduce ourselves to the community. The first thing is home visit. We walked throughout the city. We visited a lot of homes. We spoke to the people, either people that Kenton knew or his friends knew, or we made new friends along the way. And to hear their stories, it's not just people who are in trouble, but also community leaders. For example, this lady here, she's the founder of a museum, but it's getting very difficult financially to maintain the museum. We have a group of elderlies who set up a walking tour because they are retired and they want to sort of give back to the community. There are also a lot of houses that are empty. And the one very sort of frightening and perhaps sad situation is that they're all frozen in time because, you know, like in this case, this lady fell sick and she has to be rushed to the hospital. And everything just remained as it is. And it's quite amazing to walk into all these homes where time almost seems to have stand still. It's really a still city. We spoke to a lot of people along the street, people who, you know, may not be comfortable in inviting us. We spoke to them along the streets when we met them. Just again, get to know some of the locals. local people, how they live, how they socialize, how they sell, how they make a living, you know, how the elderly, the retirees socialize and spend their time. We also visited several community groups. The one on top is Mother Teresa's, where a lot of homeless people and elderly go to socialize and to have their lunch and dinner. And they were amazing. They had a karaoke performance for us. We visited the shopping arcade community just to get a sense of how bad the situation is. They say people don't come here anymore because there's a brand new shopping mall. So a lot of people go to the shopping mall instead of going to this old shopping street. And then you have quite an interesting group of elderly people that set up their own little arts and craft group, you know, just like you guys, to make things, you know, and then sell it to the tourists. Of course, being new to Beppu, our students were like all crazy about Japan and all that. You know, they had a chance to be a tourist as well. Some of the local artists decided to also set up their own tourist car. He drives around, and this is his art project. You wait for the person at the airport, and then ask this person if he wants to get a tour of the city, and you just drive this person in his car. And that's his project.
What does it say in the car?
The airfield is Beppu, so it's the name of the city. I think, yeah, and then that's, I guess it's the mountain or the arrow. It could actually be also a human being if the line goes a little bit higher, so it means Beppu person. But I think definitely it says Beppu. You know, so my students were being tourists and first time in Japan, they were so crazy about all the different practices. The other thing is media as well. In this day and age, as we know, media is so important to get the word out to everybody. So we appeared on a morning show, which is quite an experience, and also appear on the newspaper as well. So again, share our our dreams, our aspirations, and what we hope to achieve to a much larger group of people beyond just visiting homes or meeting them along the streets. So they documented our working process. Again, not unlike what you guys are working on right now. They follow us, took pictures of where we go. But besides television, we are also looking at how we can present the project differently. So some of my students use comics as a way to talk about the city, to present the city. So this was a project by two students who turned the whole process, the whole event into a comic book, and there's dual translation in the final copy, and it was given out to the people. And then we had a presentation actually here in Tokyo on the last day. It's interesting, just now we were talking about how you can present the work differently. Our architecture students and also the Japanese design students, instead of standing in front with their drawings, they had to perform. So this was a performance that they had to do, whether it's a project about community garden or about using recycled plastic crates. They actually have to be in front of the crowd and perform the project instead of talking. Media refers also to what we use to make models. So again, as architects, a lot of time we make models. We use wood or cardboard to make urban models and things like that. But we felt that in this situation, this is not the right thing to do. So what we did was we went around the neighborhood and started to collect stuff from the people. Part of the reason is also to get them excited about the whole event and the project. So they gave us from cables to styrofoam balls to cardboards, and half of the studio was filled with all these things, spectacle cases, and we're wondering how do we use this? Look at all the amazing spectacle cases over there. So the idea was really to use this found materials or recycled materials and turn them into sort of a community project where we got the people to come in and help us make this model. So these are pictures of the models, which they have to reimagine what the strings are supposed to be. A florist gave us a lot of flowers and things like that. So what we tried to do was to help them to use this as a way to tell a story, as a way for them to talk about some of the challenges in the city. Like, for example, some of the stocks of flowers, they were talking about how we can use them, or rather perceive them as community gardens. Maybe the strings can be bike trails that can connect different places within the city. The border caps become rest stations, and the trash bag becomes the river. So as a way to, again, find user story. And this is one of the strategy as well, because we're not really keen to sort of come in and make a really nice laser cut model and all that kind of stuff. We want to create a bottom-up process. And this was really amazing because they realized that they can actually use all these things to help them tell the stories and share with us their challenges. And then we have the local university students talking about what are their aspirations, what would they like to do to help the city, using the model. The next strategy we use is called public service or community service, and it really means service, as in cleaning the street. So every few weeks, everybody needs to, all the shopkeepers will have to clean the streets. And since we occupy one of the shops, we are considered shopkeepers as well. So we have to clean the streets and wash the streets, just like any other people. We conducted community workshops for the local residents as well. This is one example of one of the typical workshops that we did. But it's not just about design, right? Because we want to also position art as an entry into design, using the art way, so to speak. So we asked them questions like, what is the sound for bamboo? So it's not what are your problems, how are you going to do this or that, but a little bit more elliptical, a little bit more on the side, in order to provoke them, in order for them to reflect or even to inspire actions. How do you tell the stories of bamboo? So this is one example. Again, apologize for the image is not very clear. This is actually a small little cooking session. So as architects, instead of building models, we make food. So these are spring rolls, and one student actually used this as a method to get the people to either write or draw something about bamboo. And they used the soy sauce to do the drawing, and she did quite a few as well. And after that, we used that as the ingredient to make the spring roll. Then after that, everybody add the project. This is another project where 3 students came together to work with the local residents. I'm talking about the one below. It's called bamboo tane. Tane means seed, S-E-E-D. And part of the project is called Bamboo Smile. And what they tried to do was to get, again, if you are working with a community, and this is a culture that is very alien to a lot of my students, and also me as well, how do you introduce yourself to the community? Because there will be a lot of, maybe distrust or maybe misunderstanding. Who are these people that flies all the way from Chicago and Singapore and say we want to help you kind of thing. So we are very careful with this, where we don't want to sort of be imposing. We want to make sure that we work with them on equal basis. So the best thing is really to give them presents. So my students made hundreds of these little seed pockets. And within the seed pocket is a little note to share with them what we're doing, and ask them to also share with us one of their aspirations for bamboo. In addition to that, they went around the city. They also asked them to smile and took a picture of them. And they collected so many smiles. We went to kindergartens as well. And in our studio, we invited people who were walking past to come in and smile and give us a smile. And we print them on t-shirts, on bags, or whatever that can be printed. So this is our architectural studio with a lot of features. And each feature, you notice, has a little tag, and each tag has a phrase, or has a word, or has something that is inspirational, something that they wish to contribute to the city. Which was really interesting because, and they come, whether they are young or old, everybody wants to get a t-shirt. But what is really interesting was when a lot of people started to hear about the project, they purposely come and see whether their friends are there, and if their friends are there, you know, they want to get more friends. You know, the sort of like a Facebook kind of thing, you know. So there was a bit of a competition. People want to get as many friends to have their picture taken. So I thought that was really interesting, something that we didn't even plan for. And every afternoon, every evening, people will come and see, you know, my son is there, my wife or grandma and things like that. So it becomes a really interesting architecture studio. No buildings, no design, right? But lots of smiles. And we provided some snacks, green tea for them. So there are several things that we are quite concerned of. You know, one of them would be, what do you do with all the empty land during the interval, right? And this is very typical in Baku. Buildings are demolished and is left vacant because there isn't any money to develop. And a lot of residents wanted to turn it into a parking lot because they find that this is an easy way to earn money from the property. And as you can see from the presentation so far, there's a lot of issues with the social needs of the elderly as well. They go to the Mother Teresa house for socialization and also for food. How do you build a community? There were some situations where the owners of the empty lands were very kind and they gave the residents, let them use and turn it into a community garden. This is again very typical in Baku, where the adjacent building is demolished, and what you are left is just a face, that is exposed to the weather. This is a very common way where they use the corrugated metal sheets to cover up. So it's almost like a bandage, and some of the buildings have all four sides bandaged with a blue corrugated metal. It's quite haunting. Because this is the cheapest way, as you can see in that picture there. So imagine in the past this was a traditional Japanese house, but right now it's all bandaged up with the blue corrugated metal, or if they don't even get the blue ones, it's just a cheap corrugated metal. Why? Because this is the cheapest way. So what we did was to develop an ecology of small ideas, as the title suggests. And after 2 summers and 2 winter sessions, we collected a total of 43 what we call mini scenarios, small little ideas that we present to the local residents. They can get up front and ask us questions as well. And this is our crate panel, which is again really amazing. We'll never be able to get this in Chicago because we are right on top of the building. So we have the chairperson of the shopping arcade coming here. We have a University of Tokyo researcher, community leaders, and even homeless person from the House of Mother Teresa. So everybody felt there's a certain stake to the project, whether you're a community leader or a homeless man. They were very curious about the things that we want to share with them. So after that, everybody come up and started talking and taking ownership of some of the ideas, and they start changing it. And they can also start to draw new ideas based on some of the ideas that we have. So in a sense, after that, we started to rearrange all the different ideas. So in the beginning, it was all very orderly, very neat. And after that, it became, pieces of paper were torn away and stick to somewhere else. Someone would draw something and add to another idea. So this is what I meant by ecology of ideas. Just to give you a couple of examples. So Pastor Iwamoto, he's a Catholic priest, and he says that churches organize a lot of social activities for the people, but somehow they're always disconnected. It would be nice if we can pull them all together. As I was mentioning just now, a lot of the elderlies are spending their time at the shopping mall, and then the small little Asami walking tour, a group of elderly came together to organize this tour to help people understand Bethel better. And then we also have a very interesting phenomenon. A lot of university students, they give away their stuff at the end of their 4 years. So this is a typical example where they will be giving away their clothes, maybe some furniture and things like that, because they say they don't need them anymore, they're graduating. So taking all these little situations, plus is an example where a lot of the shops, or rather houses, have their ground floor removed, vacated, to turn into parking lots. Taking all these things together, we tried to use for example, one of the vacant houses as a way where the elderly can come socialize. We can expand the tour group to include biking, and Kenta design and introduce a biking route that will connect some of the empty houses that will be turned into social spaces as well as a business for the younger generation, for the university students, as well as for the elderly. So it's like an intergenerational space. Plus, the biking route will connect to the churches that Pastor Iwamoto was talking about. And maybe we might even want to develop that style bike. Another example, here you have 3 small ideas. One is a kitchen garden, the other one is a community kitchen, parking space, and a hanging bamboo screen. So these are small little ideas. Right now they stand as independent ideas, and what we try to do is to connect them. And these are images of how the hanging bamboo screen can be further developed. But we're trying to connect all these things together. One of the strategies was to use the beer crates, because this is very prevalent in the city. They use the crates for many different purposes, as well as a chair for them to sit on as well. So what 2 of my students, or rather 3 of my students did was they got beer crates from a beer company and started to insert them in different parts of the city. And sort of just to set up like a pop-up kind of social space. The elderly can come, they can talk. And also we wanted to make this very undesigned in the sense that it's not a Sejima community garden. We want it so everyday that people can actually use. They are not fearful of it. They see this and they say, hey, I can do it as well. But as designers, we also encourage our architecture and design students to see how you can turn the crates into something that you can carry as a bag, or also to turn that into the cart that they use to sell fishes, use it as a way to sell fishes, and also in a sense use that as a chair for the elderly, but with a little storage space in there. Then here, I'm showing two ideas that will combine into one so that they're interdependent. One of the Japanese students, she wanted to create this kitchen garden, and another American student was thinking of a community kitchen. So what they did was, or what rather what she did was she built this kitchen garden in the studio itself, right? And I believe the wood was donated by a local carpenter. Again, because of we want to keep costs to almost zero, and also to bring the people in so that there is some sense of ownership to the whole project. So she built this in the studio, and people would come in and ask her what is she doing. And this is how it looks like when it's done. Again, it's not like a sleek design. Something very simple, something that they can actually do it on their own as well. And they can be expanded. She took part of it out to a small little square and started to test it, to cook noodles for the people around the square who were basically just sitting there, nothing to do. So what she did was she pulled this out and started cooking. But the interesting thing here, you can see the host, she had to, at first she was thinking of being self-sufficient because you do not know where you are, so might as well bring all the water and everything. But we told her, no, the idea is to actually borrow from people. So she had to, wherever she goes, she has to talk to the residents and ask them if I can borrow some water to cook noodles. I think that is really important as well. I felt working in the community, we are not independent of the community. We need their help as much as they may want us to share with them our design ideas. So it was really fun, and everywhere she goes, she has to negotiate with people to borrow water to cook noodles. This is during one of the spring or summer, where she tested it out as a small garden as well. I just want to end with a couple of quotations, which I felt was really interesting. This was something that was feedback to us about half a year later. I asked Junko Abe, who is the Beppu project coordinator, and asked her what has happened since then. And we were quite surprised that she said a lot of them started to sort of reactivate the neighborhood by themselves. So we are almost zero, we are nothing, we are invisible. I think that really is the best approach, at least for this project. We have no ego, everything becomes immersed into the community. Maybe they would have forgotten us as well, which is amazing. I threw this in just now, just as the last slide, because I thought it was really interesting. Junko Abe said that at least from her memory, there's no such word as design in the Japanese language. The closest is design, if I pronounce it correctly. And that's the Chinese character or the kanji character. And what it means is that it's consciousness. This word here, the first character, is consciousness or awareness. So when I saw the word consciousness just now, I said, I have to put this slide in. So instead of a designer as a way we always see what a designer is, she says maybe you guys, what you did was to design the consciousness or awareness of people, of their environment, and how perhaps they can actually reactivate community by themselves rather than us designing a building or designing this and that. So I thought that was really nice, and I never thought of a designer as a craftsman of consciousness or awareness. That's it. Thank you so much.
So, any questions? No.
Yes, please.
Maybe I didn't read that completely, but the people were giving away their stuff when they were graduating?
Yeah, the students.
They're your students? Or
No,
people from
these are the students from Beppu.
And they did this before you were there already? Or
Yes, it's like a practice, a tradition. That was what they told us.
How did it start?
I do not know when they started. Yes.
How long did the workshop take place?
2 summers, 1 winter and 1 spring session. So we have 4 sessions.
And did you document it in publication, or is there
No.
or is this the end of the workshop, or is it possible to extend?
Of course, we would like to extend, but since then, many things have happened in Japan, politically as well as other, as we all know, a lot of challenges, both natural and political. So right now it's at a standstill. But what is nice is that because it's so simple, that you don't really need to, if we want to redesign the scheme for the building, yes, we need to make a bit of effort in terms of raising funds and things like that. But the rest of it, to take a picture of someone's smiling, I don't think you need an architect for that. Which was really interesting because some of the architects, when I present to a group of architects, they were kind of like, but this is not what an architect does. I thought that was really interesting. There was some debates about, so what's your role as an architect? But I felt in this day and age, perhaps, we can work with society more than just a building. Yes.
How did you occupy this shop? Was there unsolicited, or did you ask somebody?
So we were invited by Bethel Project that hosts this annual mixed bathing art festival. So they have negotiated with the local people, some of the empty shops, and they asked us to use some of those shops. But some of them are, we still need to clean up a little bit and things like that. So the shops were actually recommended by the Bethel Project team.
From your
From Bethel.
No, but from your own experience, would you think that it would be possible without any governmental or I don't know, like city board?
In this particular situation, they had the support of the city.
Yeah, would it happen without? Would it be possible?
If you just occupy a place,
No, just occupy. Yeah.
Yes, you can occupy any empty buildings in Chicago. Sounds like. If you were to do it in Bethel, just like that, no. Again, this is a really interesting phenomenon because I'm not Japanese, so I rely a lot of ownership on my Japanese partner, Kenta Kishi. But he shared with me an interesting insight that even as a Japanese, when he was at Bethel, they were rather suspicious. This Tokyo guy, what is he trying to get out of us? So that was initially the perception. So it took him so much time, almost like half a year, just to develop that relationship. So even as a Japanese, it was quite a challenging task for him. Yes.
I was curious about the lower grants you won.
Sorry, I didn't get it.
You won both the Motorola grant and the Toyota grant,
Yes.
the foundation grant. I was curious, how much do they award for the project, and what was the largest use of the funding? Was it for transport or for living expenses?
It was for transport, for flight. I wish A&A or JR were expensive, but that was impossible. The accommodations, the students live in that studio, so there's a mezzanine, so they live there upstairs. So they live there, and then to bathe, they go to the onsen, the hot spring. So the nice thing is that, again, it's not in a hotel or anything. They had to go around the neighborhood to get the resources, what they need. A lot of those, the other students stayed with other Japanese artists and designers. They have little places, and usually we're there for 7 to 10 days kind of situation. So it's quite doable to share the space. And also it's nice to develop that sort of relationship as well.
You said that one of the results was that elderly people got more activated, right? So the re-effective. Sorry. Anyway, my question is, the shopping street, can you also see an improvement in the shopping street?
It was really interesting. The last visit we were there, there were more than a couple of 3 shops that were set up by the university students who just graduated. One of them turned it into a creativity kindergarten, childcare kind of place. Another one, that Indian person, he was from the university, he set up an Indian restaurant. And then the student who did this project, because it's basically zero capital, all you need is a space, and she built her own furniture. She set up a little coffee shop and a bookstore. So the last visit was actually very, very inspiring. Not a lot, 3 or 4, but it's sort of like sprouting. So those folks, Beto Project, they're doing a really great job. With this annual event, a lot of people are going, and it gives them the
Yeah. I was wondering, how does this community project kind of exist next to your zero research? Because on the one hand, I think the zero research was very much about unbuilding and like how to deal with a city that is shrinking and depopulating, and how can a designer actually help to do this gracefully or to this in a way that is humane and so in unbuilding something, which has somehow, which I like about it, is that it kind of incorporates the tragic side of society and how to give shape to that. While this project seems to kind of want to work against this kind of negative tragic side. So we have to reframe shrinking or this next, and we have community project designers, and we have to be positive. So I think I feel kind of a ambiguity or contrast between these two projects. How do you?
Regarding the Unbuilding project, it's on the Zero website. Kenta Kishi actually proposed an idea of unbuilding school to teach the local people how do you dismantle the building gracefully, as we used to it, and also a materials center. So after you unbuild, you can keep this materials, and people can come. You can give it to them. They can use it in whatever way. I didn't show it because that was a standalone project. So we have 43. Some of them we could group them together to create an ecology of ideas, which is our main goal. And then there are some that could potentially stand alone by themselves, and the Unbuilding School is one of them. As for if there's any contradiction, I don't think so, because negative and positive exist, right? So it becomes zero. No, I'm just a bit too flippant with it. But I think the nice thing is that it's not a very strong didactic that it has to be this or that. I think the fact that it's inclusive, we have many things happening at the same time. Just like when we're cooking.
No, but still, I mean, also for yourself to, because although you've been there often and that's a relatively long time frame for a workshop, which I think is good, because often these things happen like in much less, and they disappear and it goes back to the same old. But still, I don't know, there's of course this bigger trend of a shrinking town and the kind of I mean, not to become fatalistic, but I don't know, I have this, I don't know, because, I mean, you've shown that you kind of see this, the tragic side, and that there's kind of a lack of being able to deal with it. And at the same time, this seems opposite. I mean, yes, of course, they can exist next to each other. But maybe we don't want to ask.
I was wondering, you mentioned the no ego. Can you explain a bit more about that?
Well, I use that as a way to sort of how we work, and also to some extent the result that came out of it. We are very conscious about a certain imageability of an object or a design. I'm not rejecting that, honestly, but the fact that if we need to borrow some wood from the carpenter or get a donation, this is the wood that we have. How can we best use it to make something? So it's not about a certain expressiveness, about once I use Ego as a way to cover a lot of the architecture we see nowadays, the sort of overly expressive thing. Also, the object like this garden, the mobile garden. Nobody knew that it was designed by a designer. It could be maybe a carpenter can put all this thing together. So that was something that, for better or worse, we were quite conscious about that. The funny thing, if you look at the word design, DE is about removing, right, your sign. If you read it that way.
Right.
So removing your signature in that sense.
Because obviously there are sort of links between taking ownership of your product and sort of a growth paradigm. Do you have any ideas on that? If you a craftsman or a designer or any builder or maker acts from a no ego point of view. I don't know if that's possible, but would that, I don't know, thinking out loud.
Yeah, it's always an interesting dilemma, especially for an architect or designer. Somehow there's always this desire for a certain way of doing things, right?
Recognition. And
this was also very conscious that I sort of inculcate, at least for this studio, that it's not about you, but it's about us that we work together. So even like we had 43 ideas, at the end of the day, some of them were rearranged by the local people, by local Japanese designers and shopkeepers and things like that. The idea was less of the design, but maybe the notion of curating ideas, so that it can sort of coexist.
Do you still get feedback from the community? Are you still in contact with people there?
No. Since half a year later, we haven't had the chance to. But I saw the poster that the art festival is still going. So actually, that prompted me. I want to sort of touch base with them, how this will work with them. But again, very funny. The artists were also kind of curious, like, how do we position you? They see us as architecture, and they were expecting some kind of design and things like that. So it was really interesting. The idea here was that, but I like that sort of situation, at least for this project.
Yeah. In these kinds of rural revitalization projects, there's often the desire to bring in external investment, external people, and that is seen as a way of basically dealing with the economic unviability of the location. But, your project is very much, I read it very much as actually attempting to energize internally. So within the local community, you're coming in as maybe facilitators, but it's essentially attempting to engage something that's potentially latent within a group of the community there, without necessarily attempting to engage outside energies.
The mayor was actually trying to bring investors in, but when they look at the situation, nobody wants to invest in the city. So it's a chicken and egg situation for the city. When we realized we were there and we talked to the local, and you're saying, oh, there's this big empty piece of land, but nobody wants to invest in it. So it's a chicken and egg thing, and we told them maybe we can sort of work internally from bottom up, and may not be a building because there's so many empty buildings anyway. Right?
So I mean, an uncharitable description of the exercise would be rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Right, I mean, shifting the chairs as the ship goes down, and that rather than finding a rescue vessel that could actually maybe prop it up or something like this. Now, what's your sense about you were repeatedly going there for a period?
Yes,
and you talked about some positive signs and maybe young people deciding to stay there rather than to move away. or maybe external tourists? I'm not sure.
So, like just now, I was mentioning to this gentleman that about 3 of the university students, after they graduated, they decided to stay back. You know, one of them set up this creative kindergarten for the local kids and things like that. So there was an Indian restaurant, and it takes time. So yes, that's what I was saying just now. During the last visit, it was actually quite inspiring. I was quite surprised that small little things are starting up. And one of the Japanese students I was saying set up a little bookstore as well. Regarding the Titanic, that's a really interesting thing. I was talking to a friend in Shanghai. I was giving a lecture in Shanghai 2 weeks ago, and I was telling him, you should think about in the West, it's always about escaping death, right? But in the East, it's always about escaping life because we are always reborn. We cannot be not reborn if you are Buddhist. So I thought it was really interesting.
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
Someone whose family who just died in a tsunami here. I think that's quite a strong thing to say.
Well, that was in the context of China. You know, I think if you are a Buddhist, you are constantly being reborn. You know, whether as a cockroach or a rabbit or a human being. You know. So you have to step out of it in order to have the reason there. But a little controversy is good.
Okay, maybe we can have some drinks. We can shift the deck chairs here, and we can return.